Welcome to Module 2 in our series. We're now going to focus on how do we take that information of values and vision and turn them into action. In order to bring the action, I want to introduce you to an idea, a theory that I think is very, very helpful when it comes to starting and establishing inclusive post-secondary education, and that is the theory of social role valorization. This is a theory that was developed by Dr. Wolfensberger, who was a tireless, passionate, strong, clear advocate who worked internationally for many, many years to assist people to develop positive beliefs and attitudes about people with disabilities, especially people with intellectual disabilities. As well, he worked to assist people to create structures that would support all people to have access to the good things in life, beginning with citizenship. He also was a very strong advocate for the closure of institutions and the establishment of supports within community. The theory of social role valorization was developed in 1983 and has developed over time. However, it has time-tested ideas that have proved to be very instructive and helpful when supporting people to have access to the good things in life. You remember in Module 1, we spoke of all of those different life spheres. So when we're thinking about having access to the good things of life, we're thinking about access to good things in all of those different life spheres. The heart of the idea of social role valorization is valued social roles. And when we use the word valorization, many people ask me, well, what do you mean by that? We're talking about adding value to. So adding value to a person's social roles to create the higher possibility or probability that the good things of life will become available to people. Now let's take a look at the definition of social role valorization and break it down into several different parts. The first part being the enablement, establishment, enhancement, maintenance, and/or defense. Okay, now you notice that these are very active words. To assist, to establish, to enhance, to maintain, to defend. So social role valorization is an active process. It tells us that we need to take actions which are informed by visions and values, and we need to take those actions with intentionality and commitment. And so what are we taking action about? The idea of valued social roles. So making opportunities available for people to engage in valued social roles that are available for all citizens. And when it comes to university, having the opportunity to be in the role of a student, an intern, a member of a social group, a member of a study group, member of a sorority or fraternity, a roommate, a resident in a dorm, and so forth. Now let's look at another important part of the definition of social role valorization. We want to focus there on the words value risk. So the enablement, establishment, enhancement, maintenance, and/or defense of valued social roles for people, particularly people who are at value risk. So what do we mean by value risk? We mean people who are at risk of being marginalized, stigmatized, negatively labeled, discriminated against, and shown prejudiced within our society. Such kinds of actions really place people at risk of being seen and treated and responded to ways that can actually cause risk in their lives. And we will talk about this more in the next module. The third part of the definition that we want to draw your attention to is by supporting people as much as possible using culturally valued means. Okay, so what does that refer to? That means supporting people in typical ways that work well for citizens within our culture, rather than developing ways that are not used with typical citizens and may not have anywhere near the same strength or usefulness when it comes to entering into valued social roles. So if we think about this in inclusive post-secondary education, we would be thinking about the culturally valued means or ways that all of the students are in fact supported when they are attending a post-secondary education program. There are three key concepts in the definition of social role valorization that are very helpful for us in guiding our work. And what I'd like to do now is to look at them one by one. The first idea is the idea of valued social roles. So, social roles, in fact, are a big part of our lives. Indeed, they are so much a part of our lives that we usually just take them for granted. And we don't really stop and think about all of the valued social roles that we have in life and how important they are to our life and how they shape our life. So, for example, even before you were born, you were in a valued role. Your parents, maybe your grandparents, right? We're thinking we're going to have a new baby in our family. Grandparents are thinking we're going to have a beloved grandchild. And then you're born, and you are in those roles. And then as you get a little bit older, maybe you become a playmate. And then as you get a little bit older, you become a student. And you attend school as a student, and you're a grade 1 student, a grade 2 student, you're a middle school student, you're a high school student. And as you leave high school, you're thinking about some new roles for yourself. Perhaps the role of being a student at, an institution of higher learning, being an employee, being a tenant of an apartment. And as you go through life, you tend to continue to develop roles. You may hold on to some of the roles that you've had for a long time. Some of the roles may fall away, but you will continue to be thinking in terms of roles in your life. So let's take a look at a definition of a social role. And this is a very good working definition given to us by one of the original sociologists, Talcott Parsons. And he says, a social role may be defined as a socially expected pattern of behaviors, responsibilities, expectations, and privileges. So let's take a role that I think most of us can really easily relate to, and that is the role of being an employee. So when you are hired to do a job, whether you're part-time or full-time, there are definitely expectations and responsibilities that come with that role of employee. And if you do them well, you'll probably succeed in the role. If you don't do them well, you'll have less success. And there are certain behaviors that you are expected to engage in, and hopefully some privileges that come from that role. So to think of this, let's look at the role of a professor. So now that is a role that clearly comes with certain kinds of responsibilities and expectations, and they're probably written out, right, in the contract that you sign with the university. And what would some of those responsibilities and expectations be? Well, that you would teach, and that you would prepare for your classes, that you'd have interaction with your students, that you would be assessing your students' growth, and so on and so forth. There are many different responsibilities and expectations that we could list there. And what are some of the privileges of the role? So as a professor, you may get access to material that you wouldn't have access to unless you were a professor. You'll get some status from that role, right? When you introduce yourself and you're able to say, well, I'm a professor at such and such institution of higher learning. And you have the privilege of being able to have many contact with many different people and share thoughts and to develop your own learning and so forth. So every role, the point is here, every role comes with behaviors, responsibilities, expectations, and privileges. So when we think about post-secondary education, here would be some of the typical roles that you'd find in post-secondary education. What are the benefits of these roles? Okay, so let's talk about benefits. First of all, when you're in the role of student at college or university or technical school, that powerfully impacts upon your image in the eyes of other people. For you to be able to say, you know, I go to Millersville University or I go to Temple University, I'm a student there. That gives you some status and some positive status. Secondly, a benefit of valued roles is that they help you to have a positive self-image. So if you're in the role of a student, again, at Millersville or Temple or some other kind of institution of higher learning, that helps you to have a positive image of yourself. And to be able to feel confident that, you know, you can be a student or you are a student at a university. Roles also bring with them the potential for acceptance and relationships. So in your role as a student at a university or some other kind of institution of higher learning, you are automatically, at least on the surface, accepted, okay, accepted as a member of the student body. And you get an opportunity to interact with all different kinds of people. I would say, you know, many more people than you'd stop and think about if you put all the people together of your classmates and in different classmates and different classes and all the different professors and then all of the administrators that you would interact with and so forth. And this brings the potential for relationships. Because when you're interacting with a whole lot of people, the more people you make, the more the opportunity you have to meet somebody that you kind of click with and become maybe friends with, or at least an acquaintance with. And so this is a really important part of life. Much has been written about the importance of having relationships within your life and being accepted. So fourthly, a powerful benefit of roles is that of belonging. One thing that my daughter has taught me is that to truly belong, the first step is being in valued social roles within whatever setting she's in. She can't just be dropping in to university now and again and engaging in some activity, although she might enjoy that. In terms of really belonging, she needed the role of student and having her student ID. And so the same way, you know, when it comes to work, we talked about the role of employee. You don't really belong in a workplace if you're just dropping in now and again and doing some kind of a work activity. You really start to belong when you're in the role of employee within an organization. So roles bring the potential for true belonging. If you are in the role of an adult and you are in the role of a student attending an institution of higher learning, it's expected that you are going to have autonomy and freedom. That is a big part of life, even when you're a commuter student in university or college. Exercising your choices and learning actually from your choices, what wise choices you made as well as unwise choices that you made, and what are the consequences of those unwise choices. But the role itself brings the expectation that you will be making your own decisions with advice and with hopefully good counsel, and that you will have freedom. You think about all of the stories we have of when people go away to college, how their first year, It's largely about knowing how to live within the context of having so much more freedom than you had when you were in high school. Roles also bring the opportunity for lots of personal growth and development. And so you could think about those different roles that we just listed that students in post-secondary education experience. And for each one of those roles, you could list the potential opportunities for growth and development, which then lead to opportunities in general in life. So opportunities to go places, do things, meet people that you would never have met, learn things that you know, would not have learned if you weren't part of the campus and the role of a student, etc. You know, if you are a student at a university, at a college or a technical school, it is very likely that your future life will be, the material side of life will be positively impacted because you have a much greater chance of getting a good job, a job that pays well, if you do have post-secondary education qualifications. And lastly, it would be your lifestyle. So I think about, you know, the role of a student just brings with it so many different things to do, different ways to dress, different people to meet, different places to go, a variety of different kinds of experiences that then impact on your lifestyle. And just to summarize this for us so that we could really keep in mind the benefits here, without being in valued social roles, you might experience some of these benefits now and again. But if you really want to experience them in a very pervasive and even, I could say, deep way in your life, the first step is to be in valued social roles. And this is what inclusive post-secondary initiatives offer to students, the opportunity to be in a variety of roles. Just think back to the pictures that we showed you in Module 1. In the next module, we are going to look at the second part that we highlighted of the definition of social role valorization. We'll look at in more depth about what are some of your experiences if you are at value risk.